So I mentioned in a video before about a chapter of my life where I was a vegan, strict vegetarian. For those of you who don't know, I can't imagine who doesn't, but vegan means only eating vegetables, plants, fruit, no animal products, no milk, no cheese, no honey, even, and being really careful not to, maybe even not even drinking some beer, which has used egg white as a fining agent, so taking out the fine particles in the after the brew has been prepared. Sometimes they use some other fish stuff too, which if you get really, really strict into the vegan world, you can begin to pay really close attention to what you eat. And I can't say that that's necessarily a bad thing. When I was a vegan, it was very easy. I didn't find that study and that paying attention to be challenging. But in the beginning, from the beginning and to the end, and even till now, one of the things that I didn't have much of a taste for was the friends, the community I found in the vegetarian vegan world who held on to their identity so tight that it became a bludgeon against other people who weren't vegan or vegetarian. And even there were vegans who were saying that vegetarians were wrong, and vegetarians saying that vegans were wrong, and the fruitarians saying everyone's wrong. And it just kind of got wild. It's like, why are we fighting? We're all kind of trying to do the same thing. Well, can't why does it need to be on or off, black or white? Can it be a little bit more subtle than this? And when I hung out with my friends, most of my musician friends were not vegetarian at all. Sometimes they would eat vegetarian with me, but as a rule, they weren't. And we would go out after a gig, or maybe on a gig. We were provided a meal, and people would be very concerned. My friends would be, "Oh, should we go somewhere that he can eat too?" I'm talking about me, and I always strictly said, "No, it's okay. You don't worry about me. Even if I can just only eat French fries, then that's cool with me. French fries are fine. I can always cook something more for myself in my own house. No problem." And I'd rather be a part of the hang than to be any trouble, to make anyone feel guilty or bad. In fact, a funny story was one time after playing some music in Dallas, Texas, we went out to a restaurant. I don't remember the name of it, but all I could order was French fries, and I was very happy. I love French fries, so I ate a small plate of French fries, and on the way home, it took us about an hour to get back to where we lived, and I started to feel kind of funny. My stomach felt kind of bad, and I thought, what's going on here? All I ate was French fries. And as soon as I stepped out of the car, as my friends dropped me off at my apartment building, I stepped out of the car, took 2 steps, and then left those French fries right there in the front lawn. And my friends were like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" It's like, yeah, yeah, it's fine. I don't know, maybe something in those French fries was wrong. And the next day, as I was recovering, feeling kind of weak after throwing up, I looked up that restaurant and called them and said, "Hey, I'm curious, what kind of oil do you fry your French fries in?" They were like, "Oh yeah, we fry everything in duck fat." And I was like, "Oh, that's why those French fries were so tasty. I had no idea. Oh, thank you." And that, explained to me that what happened is, although I often thought that if I ate something that wasn't vegan and didn't know, it was probably okay. Well, actually, if your body is completely ill-adjusted to some products, then yes, it can make your body upset. And I thought that part was pretty funny too. At the end of that chapter, I was looking at going to Europe with a band to go play some music and tour all about. And I knew that I would be seeing some old friends and visiting homes and accepting meals from like grandparents and come out, we're going to go out to this restaurant. It's really beautiful or whatever. And I wanted to be able to be there, to really be with them and to share every part of that experience with an open heart and mind, and that they also were full of joy and comfort with my company. So, having been a vegan for a long time, I thought I better adjust my body to whatever it is that I'm going to end up eating in Europe. So, I found somebody who raised some chickens, and I said, "Can I have a couple of eggs?" And they gave me 2 or 3 eggs, and I hid them. I lived with roommates at the time, and I secretly I prepared myself one egg and ate it. And it's just like, "Oh, how am I going to do? How's this going to be? Is it going to be okay? Am I going to get sick like that French fry time?" And actually, when I ate it, I felt really good. I could feel energy coming back into my body that I had forgotten that I didn't have. Although I had run many marathons by that point, it was quite an unusual experience. And I didn't tell anyone. But then when I hung out through that day with friends and saw them and played in bands and stuff and rehearsals, everyone said, you seem kind of different. You seem kind of bright and level, chill. Have you done something strange? And I thought, well, no. And they're like, did you eat something new? And I said, I had an egg. And they're like, there it is. You had an egg. Now you're all healthy. And I didn't tell them at first, but that they noticed something was different was probably the most telling aspect of re, what's that word? Readjusting my body to being, to consuming an animal product. And that kind of told me something interesting, that although the chapter of being a vegan was really nice, it was a good practice. It was kind of an ascetic practice in a way. That actually, in pursuit of not killing, the generosity of people who would host me, old friends who would want to celebrate and enjoy time together in a faraway land, that maybe I was doing something to myself that wasn't in accord with the ethic of do not kill. Perhaps I was depriving myself to an extreme, not unlike the Buddha, eating 1 grain of rice a day, for example, in the forest. So in that way, it had a great value. But coming back from it, there was yet another level of understanding to be had. And so I stopped being a vegan. And I enjoyed vegetarian food. I still enjoy, of course, cooking that way sometimes. And in monastic training, all the food that monks prepare for other monks, especially in Zen, is vegetarian, is in fact vegan. Though not intentionally. It's called shojin ryori, and that just means training people cooking, and training people cuisine. And yeah, as a rule, it's vegetarian, and it also excludes garlic and onions and leeks and all of those very fragrant plants that taste so darn good. The idea there being that when you consume those things, it produces a desire because they're very strong, and they also produce a smell, and it gives you, you just want to be very, very mellow in monastic training environments. So limiting that out as well is important. It's true. When you only eat vegetables, you get more mellow. You have a certain lack, which produces a different kind of energy in your life. It can make your zazen really calm and easy because you don't have this sort of grr energy that you might have if eat a bunch of steak or whatever. But at the same time, when you get sick in the monastery, we were often offered, boiled egg or something like this because we need some kind of extra vitamin thing. It's particularly in a Japanese monastery, the vitamin content of the food is pretty low, even though it's supposed to be healthy and training people food. There are things that are missing. We don't eat very many nuts, for example. A good vegan eats lots and lots of nuts. There's tofu, but that's just one kind of bean. It's heavily processed, even if it's a natural process. You miss some stuff. And when you get sick, you need it. You probably got sick because something was missing, which is a telling fact if you're really kind of measuring up all those parts. Like, well, goodness, if I had just eaten healthy for me all along, I wouldn't have had this problem. So it really highlights the fact that do not kill as an ethic is much more nuanced than simply not taking life in order to support life. Indeed, it's important to remember that the Buddha, on the whole, was not just a vegetarian. He accepted meat from people who wanted to give him food offerings. There was a rule. I think whether it was something you just tell yourself as a monk or you really hold it carefully, that's an ethical quagmire of its own. But if you wander to a person's house and you beg for food with your bowl and they bring out leftovers from yesterday or what have you, and meat is an ingredient in that curry or whatever that you would receive, then you take it because that animal was not killed for the purpose of feeding you. It was killed for the purpose of feeding the family in that home. And then what the family ate to contentment wasn't all of the food that was prepared. So it was left over. And then the next day, that was in a way pure because it served its purpose. And then it was okay for a monk to receive. Now, perhaps lay people, you can only imagine, it's just like today. If you know the monks are coming, you know that if they consume this, it might give them some energy to be healthy. You might cook it and you might just say, "Oh yeah, this is a leftover from yesterday." And that's a kind of a generosity. It's kind of a giving a loving gesture of medicine in food to the monks. And then the monk says, "Oh, thank you. Leftovers from yesterday. It's okay. I can accept this." Well, was it truly? Maybe it wasn't. But all the same, the gift is a gift. Giving intentionally and thoughtfully is also really important for the people doing the giving. And the monk, their job is to accept the gift, to spread the Dharma, to share how to live a good life and how to not increase the amount of suffering in our world. Heavens knows we have enough. So, yeah, that's kind of my quick take on having been a vegan and then not being a vegan anymore. There's a lot of lessons to unpack in there. Whether you are a monk or a lay person, we all live on the generosity of others. Someone else had to do the work to prepare the thing that you're eating, whether that's in a restaurant or whatever. Then maybe they're getting paid for that time and you've paid money to get the thing. Anywhere you look, pay is never enough. The meaning of currency is just, it's not enough. So we give more than we get in that pay form. And what we give from our work becomes the body of everyone else around us. And in that way, every time we receive something, even if we've paid for it, we're receiving more than we're giving money for. So we ought to be very careful and loving and grateful for whatever we receive because it is all an offering in its own way. And it's probably worth our time if you're interested in the Buddha way to take up all of that receiving as activity of the Buddha way. Do not kill. Not yourself. Not an animal. But that's a gray zone. And also not the generosity of others. Not killing yourself means that you have to eat what you need to eat, depending on your body. And sometimes depending on the body of someone that you live with and love, that you have to take care of, or the children that you're raising. You could raise children healthy as vegetarians, but I think that might be really hard. That might not work for everyone. And then for those who it doesn't, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, then, or if it doesn't work for your neighbor, then maybe telling them that they're wrong is killing in another way. So maybe you should be really careful about the idea of holding the ethic of not killing. I wonder what you think about this. I can't possibly have said everything I want to say in one little video, so I'll stop here. But at any rate, may you be well.